Welcome to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated's Fortitude Speaks. Born from the theme Forward with Fortitude, this series is about what fortitude looks like in action. Fortitude Speaks.
Hello, we are so delighted to have with us today Mika Simmons, General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's an absolute pleasure.
What we want to talk about today, just me and you, don't worry, nobody else is listening. But certainly when we talk about social action and Delta Sigma Theta, and we say it's in our DNA,
yes.
And there are so many tools, just this range of tools for advocacy.
Yes.
One of the most powerful being a litigation and involvement with the justice system, if you will.
Yes.
You spearhead for us that charge, if you will.
Yes.
And this year, really, this biennium, I think we've really taken that to another level.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about SB1? What is it?
Yes.
And why did we get involved?
So SB1 is one of many restrictive voting legislations that was passed in direct response to the 2020 election. And it is the legislation that was passed in Texas. We also have SB 202 in Georgia. We are also dealing with districting issues in Mississippi. So what I'm saying here is we're dealing with this across the nation. SB1 in particular was an early model of an effort to obstruct the ability for voters with disabilities, Latino voters, Black voters, and specifically we had a lot of Native American voters that were impacted in Texas by the legislation. And among other things, in very just honest terms, what it did was say, okay, in order for you to register to vote, you have to meet certain ID requirements. And the ID requirements were, quite frankly, nearly impossible for people to meet, some people to meet, based on generations or access, particularly Native Americans. In addition, it prohibited drive-through voting. It changed the number of voters that could be in one vehicle to come to a voting location. It made it illegal for someone to assist someone else unsolicited in registering to vote. It actually made it a felony. So say I called your home and you had asked, you'd submitted a request, so I'm calling to help you, and I asked if there was someone else in your home that needed help. Technically, that made it a felony. It obstructed the ability for everyone to have equal access to register to vote and to actually vote. It was an extensive, obstructive legislation.
That's pretty
It's
shocking.
fast. And shocking, right?
That's pretty shocking. I mean, this is like a different form of literacy test and poll tax and, really taking us back about 60 plus years or so.
Absolutely.
So we got engaged in this, but this sounds like a huge undertaking. You listed Texas. You talked about other states
Yes.
as well.
We're in two other active litigations right now.
So how did you engage? Who did you engage with, both within the sorority and outside?
Well, I think we have to start with where it started, and it started with our Social Action Commission, specifically with Sheryl Gray Evans. She came to legal counsel and said, hey, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund has asked if we will join them as plaintiffs in this suit. And we were under the leadership of our now 26th national president, Beverly Evans Smith. We brought it to the board of directors in a resolution, and it was voted upon that we would embark on this new path for Delta, because Delta's always done social action. That's who we are. That's how we were born. But what we looked at was we had to take a 360-degree approach here to this, because our rights are being dismantled on a state level, and there is no federal protection for voting rights.
Wow.
No, there's no federal legislation. So you really have to focus on each state. So when Sheryl came to us, we said, okay, we went to the board, we got approval. And from there, we jumped in. It's been a long process. It is ongoing. I will tell you that under the leadership of our now international president, Elsie Cook Holmes, I think we elevated it to another level. And we work collaboratively with our Social Action Commission, with our communications committee, and our amazing communications director, as well as our communications expert, Carrie Ann Hamilton, and the Counsel legal advisors. And we came together. And when I went to Soror Cook Holmes and said, and she understood and completely supported this, we can fight this in the courtroom, but people need to know we're in there. And people need to know, people don't know this is happening. People need to know that this is happening not just in their state, but in other states. And for people that are in states where this isn't happening, they need to know it could happen to them. So we need to raise our voices here. We need to engage all our sorors. This isn't a Texas issue, because Georgia and Texas have similarities. There's models. This is going to be an issue throughout the United States. And I'm very pleased to say we had resources, and most importantly, our sorors in Texas, who helped us launch what I think was one of the most amazing seasons I've had here as counsel. We had virtual rallies, we had on-site demonstrations and conferences. We wanted to make sure that the world knew we were there. And our sorors showed up in court every single day for 6 weeks.
Wow.
I went there 3 times. The international president came several times. We were in the courtroom. The judge remarked about it. We were on the state side. There wasn't enough room on our side. And we partnered with the other organizations as well. I also must say that it was easy for us to be plaintiffs because we've always done the work. So it wasn't hard. It was easy for us to say our brave sorors who testified, Sharon Watkins-Jones and our former Southwest Regional Director, Michelle Brown. It was easy for them to testify because they were really just talking about what we've done.
Right.
And our sorors in Texas had been in the meetings opposing the legislation and commenting on it before it was passed. So I really just think of it, this elevation, as a wraparound where we all came together collaboratively and maximized impact and awareness. And it's important because we're going to do the same thing in Georgia, and we're going to go through something similar in Mississippi. And there was a court hearing today about Louisiana. So we won't stop. It's been my pleasure to be able to be kind of the spearhead of pulling people together and kind of leading this elevation from a legal perspective in partnership with the Legal Defense Fund. Yeah.
So it's really the power of this sustained commitment.
Yeah.
We didn't just fly over and land and say,
No.
here we are.
No.
We've been there for a while, and we were able to leverage that.
Absolutely. We had to, so when they asked, the first thing we ask as lawyers is, do we have the documentation to back it up? The diligence lift for this was heavy, but guess what? We were suited to do it. We weren't even thinking about it when we started doing what we did, but by nature of who Delta is, we were best positioned to embark upon this. And I'm so proud. We had a amazing victory last week with SB1.
Tell us about it.
Well, last week the judge, and we've been waiting, by the way. We expected this decision in May, June, we were hoping.
Wow.
But we've been waiting, and we were patiently waiting because you could tell the judge was really listening and wanted to decide this based on facts and understanding of the law. In fact, let me say this. When we closed, he did something that they don't usually do. So usually they do closing arguments. The judge said, I'm not going to do it that way. I have questions.
Interesting.
So I have questions. So I want counsel in the room, and I'm going to ask you questions about the spaces, and I need time to make sure I get all my questions addressed. So I need a few months, and then you come back, and I'm going to ask my questions. So you could tell he was very focused on establishing a decision that could withstand, I think, and I'm hopeful, appeal, because I expect, right? I expect some kind of challenge there.
Yeah.
But in really understanding the intent of the law and the impact. So I circle back to say that our success has been with specific sections of SB1, and the judge ruled that the ID requirements within SB1's specific sections of SB1 violate the law and specifically encumber the rights of those with disabilities. There were additions in SB1, like something called the assister's oath, and an amendment to of assistance that was discouraging to volunteers. It was frightening. They had to make an oath that they were doing this of their own free will and under penalty of perjury and felony, and it was dissuading people from assisting people with disabilities. So the judge determined that it violated ADA Title II and the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, and that's excellent. And under Purcell, it is also, it cannot be overturned. So in the May 2025 local elections, they have to follow his ruling no matter what because of the timing. So it's also very effective. We talk about the importance of local. It's very effective from that perspective. And we think it's going to set a precedent, I think, for other states that maybe have similar legislation in that district. But also, judges look at decisions that came before other judges' decisions from other states in determining constitutionality.
Interesting. You talked about, when you think about the fact that there aren't federal protections relative to voting rights, so that it is a state-by-state thing. That means anyone that's going to challenge it really has to have the heft and the reach and the resources for this sustained engagement. So you mentioned several other states. Does that mean we're going to be pulling together a very similar coalition? You talked about the LDF. They are legendary.
They are.
For really leading the charge, and for us to be partnered with them, that's pretty impressive.
It's extraordinary. I mean, we've partnered with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund for many years, and we just expanded that partnership. They feel like family now. They call to us and we call to them when we find that there is a disparity in treatment or anything in civil rights that is being challenged. I think that we will continue. I mean, listen, it's like you're playing whack-a-mole across the United States.
I love
which
the
is
visual.
Right? Like, that's how I feel, right? You're just trying to knock it down, and you can't knock them all at one time. And so it's not practical either, right? So we partnered last fall with the National Leadership Conference, invited us to the Hill to advocate for the passage of the Freedom to Vote Act. It's a package. Within that is John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would codify national voting rights, So I think that we have to continue to make that push, but we need to be prepared. And you're right, this is expensive. I mean, I think it's a war strategy, right? To have us playing whack-a-mole is a war strategy. Hey, focus over here. Hey, focus over there. And I think Delta is uniquely positioned to focus and to beat them at a game of whack-a-mole. We have more than 1,000 chapters across this nation, so if anybody can play whack-a-mole well, I think it's us.
But we had to have the courage.
We had to have the courage
to step forward.
We did. And it wasn't like we had the resources, right? Like, I'll speak solely for my department and ourselves. We still had a ton of other work to do. I am really grateful to our international president, who did give us some additional resources and support and said, go ahead and lean into this space. For our communications team and department, they were fantastic, who said, okay, we're going to give you resources. We're going to work on media. We're going to make sure we plug into these really impactful spaces to elevate our voice. Our structure of having more than almost 1,000 chapters nationwide, spread across all of the United States, right? And then having our Social Action Commission layered in regionally, state, local. It puts us in a position where we not only have the power and the voices and the numbers, but we actually are doing the work on a local level. We are doing the work on a state level. We are doing the work on a regional level. And so, yes, it could be overwhelming because, quite frankly, we could be in 40 lawsuits. I also think, listen, we are always leaders. We are most often the first, and if we're not the first, that's by choice, typically, right? So we had our first national ad campaign last year.
Yes.
Which was amazing.
It
on
was.
the WB, right? That was extraordinary. But that ad campaign wrapped around the importance of voting. So I think if anyone is going to stand in the gap to play whack-a-mole, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is well suited to do that.
But it takes all of us.
It takes all of us, every last one of us. And I think what's important, so when we talk about the virtual rallies, for example, we were talking, at first it was like, okay, well, are we only going to focus on sorors from Texas? And absolutely not. We had sorors from all across the country plugged in. Why? Because what happens in Texas matters where you live.
That's right.
And people, that's the trick here in the United States, to make you think, right, that what matters over here, that's just Texas and their civil rights, that it won't affect you. It will affect you. So our sorors were engaged. We had sorors who flew to Texas, took off work to go to Texas and be there. So we are vested, but it does take resources. It does take time. It does take courage, because we're standing in the gap and waving the flag and saying this is not right. We will not stand for it.
But when we fight,
we win.
We win.
When we fight, we win, and we just won.
Right.
We just won.
Right.
Because we stand on right. Right.
Yeah.
The data in SB1 around the impact was indisputable. One of their arguments was, there were a couple of arguments that I have to share, mostly because I think they were quite ridiculous. Even the judge laughed at one point. And they were talking about the law I mentioned that made it a felony to unsolicitedly, in an unsolicited manner, help someone. Right. They said, well, no one's been arrested, right? No one has actually been arrested. So what's the threat? And they were interviewing our soror, Sharon Watkins Brown. Sharon Watkins Jones. Michelle Brown's the other soror. Sharon Watkins Jones was on the stand, and they kept challenging her to say it wasn't a threat because no one had been arrested yet. And she kept saying, SB1 is the threat. The fact, and the judge was sitting there, and you could tell, the fact that you're telling us just because we haven't utilized this law makes it's okay. We haven't arrested anyone yet, but you can.
Right.
And we're supposed to just be okay with you, or them saying, well, people did have trouble, and there were a lot of people who were not able to vote because of SB1 and weren't able to register. But we worked it out for the next cycle. That's supposed to make it okay?
No.
They're like, well, we didn't know how to implement it, but we're figuring it out. That's not how this legal system is supposed to work. That's not how access to voting rights is supposed to work.
Right. Well, that's why it's so important to be informed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To know how these things work, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I think it's really smart, too, that we combine this legal strategy with a communication 100%. Strategy, because not only do we need to educate the community, we need to educate our sorors, right?
Absolutely.
So that they know to show up.
That's right.
They know to support.
They know to pay attention to Texas, even if they live in Georgia.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said something else, which is everybody's been talking about it, everybody's been feeling it. Everyone worked really hard in 2024. Yeah, so you're doing this while everyone's working on the election itself, right?
Yes.
And so how how do we go on from here? You know, there's some that are like, well, I'm just going to step back for a while and just see what happens. I don't know that we have time for that, do we?
We don't know. We have no time. There is no time for that. And we don't have a choice, right? We have to keep pushing forward on every level. And Delta, if you think about it, we have rich resources just in our members alone. Just in our members alone. I will share that we said we've always done training, right? Delta's known for its training and social action, but we trained lawyers specifically this year, and not just Delta lawyers. We reached out and trained lawyers around the nation, over 5,000 lawyers, to stand in the gap and stand in the space during elections, to be trained on enforcing people's voting rights. I think we have to look at the fabric of who we are and say we have a deep base of talent in communications. Let's leverage that. We have a deep base of and working together collaboratively and knowing when to, there have been times where we've said, we care about that, but there's another voice that can speak to it better, right? I think it's staying focused on the collaborative goal. And no, to answer your question, there is no time to rest. We cannot pause. Our very right to have a voice in what happens in this country, in our states, locally, is on the line. We do not have federal protection for voting rights. That is the beginning and the end of it. We had an opportunity. I went with the international president to the Hill for the National Leadership Conference. Had meetings to advocate for the passage of the Freedom to Vote Act. It's a package, but specifically we were focused on the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and that along with the other acts make up the Freedom to Vote package, and they're all very important. Collectively, codify at a federal level everyone's right to vote. All citizens' rights to vote. Doesn't matter if you're Black, you're Latino, you're Native American, you are disabled, and your right to access voting. It's incredible to me that hasn't passed yet. It's incredible.
That we're still talking about it,
but I think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
And I feel very fortunate that we're Delta, so we can match the deliberateness with our own strategic approach to advance voting rights. So we're hitting this on a state level. We're also hitting this on a national level. And I'll share that we've been in conversations and looking at, there are different laws that people are looking to pass in states that proactively protect voting rights. So we've been in a reactive phase, right? Like, oh, okay, they passed SB 1. Let's react to that. And so the question that we took a step back and said, okay, to the NAACP, LDF, are you doing anything? What's being done to proactively protect rights on a state level until we can get this right on a national level? So no, we're not stopping. We are continuing to press on. I expect more challenges.
Oh yeah.
I expect, Georgia, we haven't even been able to get that trial started. We're 4 years in. I lose time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a long road. It's a marathon.
You took that word right out of my head. It's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
And given that it's a marathon, it takes energy.
It takes energy.
It takes focus.
It does.
It takes commitment.
It does.
And yet we are still in the midst of the chaos and the challenges all around us.
Yes.
So how do you protect your peace in this time to have that strength and focus and energy to keep on running?
For me, I start my day in gratitude and being grateful for the fact that I'm awake, that I'm breathing, that I can wiggle my toes and my fingers. Whatever blessings, I think that keeps you very for me, that keeps me grounded. I do my daily affirmations every day. I make time. I do it in the shower, so everybody has to take a shower, so there's no excuse. There's no I don't have time. You take a shower, so you make time. And then I stay focused on living in my purpose. For me, that is a constant vessel of joy that is not connected to the existence of any other human being. If I am living in my purpose, then I feel a level of fulfillment. So it's those three things for me: gratitude, nourishing myself with my affirmations, and focusing on my purpose.
That is the perfect way to end what has been such a
Thank you.
delightful conversation. We are so grateful to you that you are Soror and that you are living your purpose through service to Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Thank you so much, Mika.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Fortitude Speaks. Next time on Fortitude Speaks.
Co-chair of the National Communications and Public Relations Committee, Soror Sheryl Steward Battles, sits down with Sorors Juanita Massenberg and Michelle Sermon Davis, co-chairs of the National Leadership Academy of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.